I think what might be really important to talk about is how your nation is structured. Moromu, if you would like to talk about this. So right from your Council of Elders, and how your government is structured and what your structure of your nation is, please.
Thank you. I'll try and do my best. So what I might do is share screen again, and I'm going to go through a little bit of it'll probably take 10 minutes. Is that all right?
Yes.
To do that.
Yeah. And
then maybe have some questions again afterwards. Up to you. Just let me know if I talk too much, because I can easily do that. All right, so I'm going to go here. Can you guys see all that now? Is it big?
Yeah. Yes, we can.
Okay, so this is how we started. So we already knew the law was there. Birregubba knows it. You fellows know that. We don't have to let you know that. But you might be interested in knowing how we did it on paper. So the same way, let's say I was going to come down there now. A new mob met me at Proserpine and said, "Hey, Moromu, how are you?" "Yeah, good, good." "Hey, you one of us?" I'm going to give you, let's say one auntie or uncle there gave me a name. "Your name's this." Let's say, whatever it might be, Pelican. "Your name's Pelican now." "Oh, thank you. That's really good. I feel good about that." Soon as I accept that name, I accept that authority and the law that came with that name. The same with the Australian name you're using. Once you accept it and you use it, you accept in that law. So, you might have heard of a bloke by the name of Edward Mabo. Eddie Mabo changed Australian law. But Eddie Mabo couldn't speak for Murray Island. Only Koiki could. If Koiki came back on paper, that's the difference. You fellas got an Australian description for your body. Your mum and dad would say, "I'm going to call you John," or this or that. But you're old enough to give yourself a name now. You're old enough to give your children a name. I'm sure you fellas can think of your own name from your language. Or we got Yidinji fellas giving themselves French name here. That's how silly it is. But that's what authority is. They got French names, like Lacroix. And there's a guy with a Greek name, Adamus da-da-da-da, Murray fella, you know? I said, "Well," he said, "No, I just want this name because I like it." Okay, fair enough. That's just for the citizen name. It's just to identify two different worlds. When you look at the voice to Parliament and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't matter what happens in there. It doesn't affect what Birregubba does. That's what these constitutional lawyers are saying right here. You know, this voice to Parliament, I'm gonna change the words here. The voice to Parliament doesn't affect how Birregubba view their own sovereignty. As a result, it does not prevent Birregubba from asserting their own independence and continuing Birregubba's validity of Birregubba law and custom. Now, I'm not going to argue with that. That's George Williams and Megan Davis saying that. It doesn't matter if Australia becomes an Islamic republic or a fascist state tomorrow. It doesn't affect your sovereignty. It doesn't affect the Githabal Narakbal Yuka Yukum. It doesn't affect Yidinji. It doesn't affect everyone else. But are you living in their world, or are you back on your world with your paper, your identity? So what is Yidinji? I showed you the photos of the mob blokes, but Yidinji, when we talk about it, is the identity on paper now, because that's the new kid on the paper block. You know what I mean? Hey, what's this piece of paper here? Oh, that describes the Yidinji territory. And Jagamara was correct there. This is our piece of paper with a root title. Cairns is the foreign description of Gimoy. And the Far North Queensland, Tablelands, or whatever you want to call it, Bundaburra, Wajinburra, we've got all those names for these towns. Some of these places are named after psychopathic murderers, like Aberdeen. You see what I'm saying? They're all foreign. I showed you this before. This is the office of the Chief Minister. Let the world know, hey, see this sign here? This resembles or identifies the highest office in government for the Birregurra Nation. It might be whatever you put on there, but you've got to let us know. And as soon as you let us know, we recognise your sovereignty. That there identifies the best department of the Gidinji government. That's the Foreign Affairs and Trade Ministry. That's the one I run. But everyone's got different ideas about that. They say theirs is the best department. So we've got a bit of a friendly competition going on. Attorney General, constitutional law, international law, law reform, legal services. This is all paper stuff, remember.
Can I say something to you, Muramu?
Yes.
Just so we understand why we're doing this, because when I've been explaining this to people, the first thing they say is, why on paper? I'm sure everyone knows the Vatican. A man called Emperor Justinian, 530 to 550 AD, created the system we're in right now. They copyrighted the Holy See of Space, which is the sea of paper. Now, what that means is when you get a beer out of the fridge and you put it down, you see the water on the outside. That's the condensation of the water in the air condensating. So it's a sea of water, a sea of space. And they say they will recognize any law on A4, Admiralty Form 4, a paper ship called A4. So it's the A4 is a ship recognized under what is known as international law and ecclesiastical law, which is religious law, that they will only recognize the law on paper. So why Udinji and Githabo, Narako, and everyone else, we carry our law in song and dance, it is not recognized. Soon as we take their piece of paper, their A4, their paper ship, put the cargo, which is the words, which is our law, they must accept it, because they can't go against their own law, which is why we're using A4s and going and using the paper now. Bless, go for it, mate.
Thank you. So that's what I'm saying. This is their world. We're just using their language so they understand where we're coming from and they know who we are. Correct. If you're using their piece of paper, their Australian paper, you're subject to their laws. All right. Have you heard of the Uluru Statement?
Yes.
All right. Most people have. We never wrote that. These are the best Australians, handpicked by Malcolm Turnbull. Correct. And those Australians, white and black, said that they're the Aboriginal tribes, and I'm thinking Birregurra might be one of those, is the first sovereign nation on the Australian continent and its islands, and possessed it under Birregurra law and custom. That's pretty good. The basis of ownership of the soil. Yeah, fair enough. Oh, Australia said about Birregurra that it's never been ceded and coexists with the sovereignty of the Crown. Now, I showed you a photo there of, at the court, their law people and our law people. That's coexistence. The one has the understanding and one has the upper standing.
Well said.
Two cassowaries can't rule one mountain. Yes, you can be here, Australia, but guess what? You under us. Birregurra Nation, the same. Get the ball and the same. If I come there, I can't take over. I can be adopted in, but I can't be the boss. You see what I'm saying? You are always the Birregurra Crown. That's what we want to see. And on our coat of arms, you'll see there's a Seven Sisters story on the paper, and underneath that is our cockatoo feathers that make our crown. We call it Murrabul. So what is sovereignty? You fellas know this. The independence of a state. Birregurra sounds independent to me. It's not Udinji, it's not Githabo Naraq or Yukum Yukum, it's not Australia. All right. Statehood. In law, it implies there is no legally authorised human authority that is competent to regulate the state's affairs. Yep, I accept that Australia is the authorised authority to look after Australians, but it's not Birregubba. Queensland is governed by the Commonwealth of Australia, but it's not Birregubba. So yours is sitting there. And I often tell the story from the Bible about the prodigal son. The prodigal son leaves his father. He was rich, this fella. And what did he do? He sought, it says in the Bible, citizenship of a foreign country. He walked out of his house and said, I'm going to go spend my money in this other world, and I'm going to become a citizen of this other world. And in his travels, he spent all his money. He had no more friends. He was living with pigs in the mud. And he's thinking, man, now I've got to go back home, I think. That's where we were. When we come home, the father is waiting here. Oh, we're going to have a party for you. Come back. I'm glad you can come home. So maybe Birregubba is coming back home now. Maybe other nations on this continent, it's time for them to come home. It's never been ceded. Physical transfer, the only way it can happen is through contract law. And even then, Russia can invade Ukraine or America can bomb the hell out of Iraq, but Iraq still got its sovereignty. You can't get it through war. You can't gain territory through war in modern times now. That's why the United Nations come about. You've never ceded it. The Uluru Statement said it. The Australians agree with that. Extinguished. You can't extinguish unless there's a treaty in place. There's got to be a contract to extinguish. There's no extinguishment. People down south always say, oh, our native title has been extinguished. How can it be extinguished if there's no contract between your nation and the Commonwealth of Australia? Extinguishment, they just can't see it. Okay? So don't worry about it. Don't worry about what happens inside of Australia. Remember those two lawyers said it doesn't affect how you view your own sovereignty. Let's say someone from your mob sold all the resources for $5 billion and they kept it to themselves. Well, guess what? They've sold nothing. The land can never be sold because that was done inside of Australia. It wasn't between Birregubba and the Commonwealth, for example. They would have used an Australian name to put that Australian money in that Australian bank account, and they might have taken it and put it into a Swiss bank account, but it's all inside their world. It's got nothing to do with Birregubba. So it doesn't matter what's happening on your territory. Someone's done this deal or that deal. That's not what we're talking about. They still haven't got true connection to country until your government comes back.
Yep. It's receiving stolen goods.
Well, that's what I was saying. Mr. Mabo was stealing from Koiki, if you look at it that way. And Mr. Gaia was stealing from the Yidinji Nation before, you know. That's why we had to create this remedy. Coexistence. Okay, more than one. Coexisting sovereignties. Yep, no worries. I know that there's Githabul, Narakbal, Yukum Yukum. I know there is Birregubba or Kukuyalanji, Kukujangan, this, that. I know they exist because we know the stories, we know the dance, we've seen them dancing. We heard that elder tell a story once, whatever it is. But now it needs to go onto paper, not Australian paper. Okay. The Githabul Narakbal, is a good example of my brothers down there. I'll use them. A defined territory. They sent us their map. They put it on Facebook. It was everywhere. And they have a permanent population. I saw the chief warrior's signature. I've seen the Foreign Affairs Minister's signature, the Honourable Foreign Affairs Minister, I must say, and the ability to foreign relations. The Githabul, Narakbal, Yukum Yukum, like Yidinji, meet every one of those criteria under the UN definition of what makes a state. We just say that, oh, well, you fellas said you need a defined territory, permanent population, effective government. They got a police department, they got this, that, and the other, and they got a foreign minister to enter into international relations. that foreign minister has been in this office, and we conducted that political and legal transaction. So where is Australia's defined territory if Yidinji's back, or the Githabul Ranakbul Yukum Yukum's back? Or what happens to Australia's territory if Birigava came back with its map? You see?
Null
And
and void.
it's government. Ooh. Okay. Territory, you know what this is. It's about jurisdiction, the Earth's surface. That's why you need to put it on paper. We know you fellas own that land down there. We know you've got law from that place. You see, the written laws for kids. We know, as tribal men and women, what the story is. If you said, Muramu, don't go over there because it's a women's story and they're doing some stuff over there. Don't go there, please. Or don't come to that area because we're having a family funeral there. Fair enough. Okay. But writing it down is for children. Hey, son, can you take that out of the rubbish bin? I might ask him 2 or 3 times. All right, there it is on the fridge. Every Wednesday, son, you do this, 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 and this. We need to write it down because, okay, thank you. Australia is like a child, and the world is like a child. You need to give them, okay, Johnny, there's your piece of paper, and there's your visa. Charles and Camilla, we gave them visas. You'd be interested to know that. So, like, you know what I mean? You got to start acting like it. We know you own it, but are you acting like you own it? Native title. Everyone says, oh, you get nothing from native title. We know that. But they're acknowledging that Birigava or Yidinji or Githabul Ranakbul owns it. That's the best thing they can do in their world. To say, you know what, Eddie Mabo, Mr. Mabo, thanks for coming into the Australian court today. We know the Meriam people own those islands. Oh, thank you. But now Koiki, if he was alive today, can go back and form his government and say, Mr. Mabo and the Mabo thing said that we own this place and Terra Nullius has been overturned. So you use all their information. That's what native title is. It's just information. So the court for native title doesn't give you native title. Australia or England couldn't give us Gimoy or Mullumbara Yidinji or Javagai or Kungai, all these different estates here. They can't give us that. They didn't even know it. But they said, this is your land. And that the title is based upon your tradition, laws and customs, which have always been here. Okay? And that means the law says to all the people of Australia, well, this is your land. And it has always been your land because your laws and customs have said and say today that this is your land. What the court does is to say to everyone Australian, this is your native title. Now, I'm not familiar with Birigava's native title determinations, if there've been that kind of stuff. Everyone says, oh, it creates fights and arguments. Yes, it does, but what you do is you get native title, and you get some crackers like this. Ownership, who owns the place? Okay, now remember, you didn't have to say anything. The Australian government said this. Neither the Australian Parliament nor the Australian government or the Australian courts have created the native title or Yidinji's ability to create titles, which we are acknowledging today. In Australia, the Act simply provides a way in which Aboriginal people can prove traditional ownership of land, which ownership has existed since before European settlement in Australia. So it's pre-1770. Today, I didn't come here to give you anything to the Munding Nalpai Yidinji Kunganji people. He can't give us what he doesn't have. But I come to acknowledge them, and before all other people, that all Australians, the Prime Minister, the King of Australia, the police officer, accept them as the traditional owners of the claim area. And he does it where they can't get out of it. So I'm going to bind you. The court binds all Australians. In particular, my decision binds the Commonwealth of Australia, the state of Queensland, and the Yarrabah Aboriginal Shire Council. So they're bound. They can't move from it. They're stuck. And we said, okay, your law in your courts said you didn't own the place. This is our government. This is our law. Thank you very much. That's why you see them in front of the court doing all this stuff. We said, "Yeah, you did a good thing." Remember, we own the whole lot. You've lost nothing in terms of that. Obviously, there's genocide, damage to culture and law and language, but you've lost nothing. It's all there for you to pick it back up again and run with it. Yidinji are not Aboriginal Australians. We're not First Nations Australians. We're not Indigenous Australians. We're not Black Australians. We're nothing. Australian is a foreign titling system. Australis is Latin. Nayu Yidinji Bamma. Nundu Birigaba Bamma. You know, I am a Yidinji man. You are the Birigaba people. But what identification you're carrying in your pocket? All right, we all been there. But once that Birigaba identity comes out, that's where the sovereignty is. Okay? It's just a piece of paper, remember. But for them, it's the whole world. So when Birigaba comes back to life on paper, true and correct owners, authority, and decision-making systems, okay? You have not lost anything. We have simply just been on holiday and someone's confused us a bit. We're not Australians. We don't want to change Australia Day. We're not interested in having a voice in an Australian Parliament. Our National Day is January 7. We just had a big weekend last weekend. Our Parliament meets every last Tuesday of every month. Okay, so that's all it is.
Can I just say 2 seconds there, mate? Is that okay?
Go on, you're right.
All right. When the Queen of England came here, she negotiated to bring her people here to occupy and trade certain lands. And we were not in the Constitution because her Constitution is for her people that she bought for England, but nothing to do with us. We are not, she calls it, and then they created the Pacific Islander Protection Act, saving the rights of the tribes. She never said saving the rights of the Aboriginal. She never said saving the rights of the Indigenous. Those words they use because by us fitting in and saying, yes, I'm Aboriginal, or yes, I am Indigenous, you no longer have your Yidinji rights, Github or Narako rights, or anything which you will give, which she recognized when she brought her citizens here. The word Aboriginal, Indigenous, they are the words to count us as a collective where they can control. As soon as we say, I'm not Aboriginal, I'm not Indigenous, I'm Yidinji, I'm Birigaba, I'm Github or Narako, none of those rights have anything to, laws have anything to do with you. Those words are simply to catch you and to try and bind you. That's all it is. What he's talking about now, by doing this, you step out of their trap, out of their jurisdiction by calling yourself your own name.
Yeah, and you use, like with the Australian realm, you use your job and your benefits as an Australian to help you pay and build this other one up. So you might get a little printer or a little office space or something like that and start making badges and identities and stuff. So you need to use both worlds to create this one. Okay, so
in order to step out of the Australian world and step into the Birigaba world, how are we meant to change our identity?
It's just the name. So like,
yeah, I know it's just a name, but yeah, like
put it on paper. Put it on paper with the system what he's given to you right now and explaining. You duplicate the same system, the same as we did, and you go through the same process. And if you need hand, you ask us, we'll assist you. And that is the process. What he's explaining is the process.
So you need
very valuable information, mate. Thank you, Uncle.
Yeah, you're right. Like I said, we're happy to help. And if we come there, just all we ask for is a cup of tea, I reckon.
Cup of tea, Dad, a cup of tea in the afternoon. Hey.
So when we did this, we said one of the first laws we did was protection of the Commonwealth of Australia. Okay?
Yep.
Why do we want to protect the Commonwealth of Australia? Does anyone know?
No, I've been looking up that for a while now on YouTube sometimes, the Commonwealth,
Well,
yeah, Commonwealth Act and all that. So yeah, can't really dabble on it, tell you the
Yeah.
truth.
well, let's say the Mr. Wiles or the Mr. Lindburn or the Mr. Tooth, the Smallwood, Mr. Smallwood, Mr. Pryor, or whatever it is, that's the Commonwealth. That's what we want to protect. The reason why we protect it is because it is the property of the Birregurra Nation. So all those pieces of paper on your territory belong to you. That's your property. Okay?
Yep.
It's like when Britain left Hong Kong, they couldn't take those buildings. They built all over a 100-year lease, whatever it was. They built all this Hong Kong into this mega modern city, but they couldn't take those buildings with them. They could only take their goods and chattels, their pieces of paper, and they went.
Yep.
And then Hong Kong became a Chinese administered territory. They had a different flag, different laws, different identification. All those things started to change. Even in Australia, the money changed in '66. And then things started to change in the '70s because the world was told to decolonise. And in 1986, in Queensland at least, that was the last of English claim to sovereignty. That was the Australia Act. So Australia is just a shell. It's got no mummy here, no daddy, and it's on our territory. And what we said, we're going to protect, we're going to adopt you, Commonwealth of Australia, because you are for us now.
Yep.
You can get true connection to Birregurra land and territory, but you're going to come through our government first. Don't go talk to those Indigenous Australians in the Land Council or to this businessman or this businesswoman here who we don't know. You've got to come through our government. But your government has to have all these written laws in place.
Yep.
What does a Birregurra citizen look like? It might be on a green card or a blue card or a pink one, whatever you guys determine. That's up to you, fellas.
Okay. Good way, my boy.
So they're the things, the simple things you can do. Once you start that stuff, you can have fun and create your own stamps. Here you can see this stamp here. If I send it to you, fellas, it's going to get there. Why? Because we made a law for it. That goes to Belgium, Venezuela, Russia, China.
Udinji's coat of arms, is it?
Yeah, that's a stingray
Nice.
on the stamp.
Nice. Yeah.
We even put white fellas on our stamp. You know how they put black fellas on their stamp and money? We put white people on it.
But everything goes to Udinji. Nice.
That's right. And that's your dingy money. So that extends worldwide. Once Birregurra goes down this track, they have their own money on there. And that's world recognised by the world, that authority, and that's your Royal Mail. Remember, all these things happening in Australia doesn't affect your sovereignty. It affects Australia's sovereignty.
Yep.
Underneath you.
Eric, I'm just going to put you back on mute. I'm just getting a little bit of feedback, if that's okay.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you.
So most people have heard about the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. There were 4 countries that didn't want to sign it: Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the United States. They didn't want to sign this declaration for Indigenous peoples to have certain rights, okay? So Udinji never held a gun to their head to say sign it. Or Birregurra didn't do that. No one did. They signed it. We didn't force them to. So why would they say that, let's say, the Birregurra Nation has the right to self-government? Why would they say in Article 5 they can build their world, or they can be Australian if they want to? Why would they say you can create your own institutions? That's a bank, your courts, everything. It's because The United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples, you say, you hear in Australia, oh, that's just an aspirational document. You know why? Because it's not the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Australians. They're talking about Birregurra, they're talking about Yidinji, Githabul and Akbal. They're not talking about Indigenous Australia there. So Indigenous Australians will have no rights more than anyone else inside of Australia. So don't worry about the voice. It's all huff and puff, all right? Now, Birregurra, I'm pretty sure, is distinct social, economic, and it has a political system. When you said Warramuri, I knew straight away where you mob are from. Because I know that greeting. And I know that you're pre-1770. There's a town called 1770 down there somewhere I went to a long time ago. You're before that. And you're still here today, and you're going to be here tomorrow. All right? But where's your government? Where's your flag? Where's your identification?
We need to establish, we need to be established one.
That's right. So, Article 5, where it says coexisting sovereignties in the Uluru Statement, this is the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Birregurra has the right to maintain and strengthen their distinct political, government, legal, economic, bank, social, your version of Centrelink, and cultural institutions. Okay? You've got every right to build that, while retaining the right to participate fully if you want to use Mr. Lamberna, Mr. Tooth, or Mrs. Wiles, or whatever it is. You can still use that ticket inside of their world if you want to. And I would say, do that. Use that Australian person and the money from it to help build your tribal nation, just to get it up and running. Okay, so this office here where I am, it's still donations come in, but our central bank is getting closer and closer of being the official currency for our territory. So there's some shops that are already accepting our money. And like I said, the Cairns Taipans, which is a basketball club here that plays in the National League in Australia, they're accepting our money for tickets. So there's some other airlines now who are accepting our identification to jump on a plane. It's pretty good stuff. Now, oh, but Muramu, they're going to take my children off me if I do that. Well, how? They signed this thing here. Birregurra and individuals have the right not to be subjected to forced assimilation or destruction of their culture. Hey, Australia, Mr. Police, Mr. Crown, Mr. Police, why are you interfering with this Birregurra child when you know Article 8 says you can't forcefully assimilate? Are you now trying to destroy our culture or forcefully assimilating this Birregurra child by forcing them into an Australian family or an Australian court? We got our court, thanks very much. We got our police to look after ourselves. We don't need your help. Okay? Can the Commonwealth of Australia take your land and resources? No. It says they signed this. We didn't sign it. We didn't make them force them to sign it. Australia shall provide effective mechanisms for the prevention of or redress for dispossession. Oh, so everything you've taken, every bit of coal and resources out of that land, what, you're going to give it back to them? You're going to provide them with redress? I'm sorry, Australia, you can't even afford your Dinges bill, let alone Birregurras. How about we just call it, we just cancel the debt right now and you accept the Birregurra Nation's official currency. And we'll give you money in Australia. You don't have to steal it from us anymore. That's what we said to them.
We're in the same process at the moment.
Yeah. Indigenous peoples shall not be forcibly removed from their lands or their territories. But guess what? Australians can, Indigenous Australians can be forcibly removed from, let's say, Harvey Bay to Bogga Road Prison. I don't know if that still exists, but it's probably out of Waco or whatever it's called now. Oh yeah, we're just upholding the rule of law. We're enforcing the law. When we moved Indigenous Australia from here to there, and that's the law, fair enough. Ah, Birigubba, that's a Birigubba citizen. You cannot force a Birigubba person from this territory unless you've got an international police cooperation treaty with their courts, with their people, their government. Okay? And that's why these mob up here know. The Queensland Police, this AFP, they all know not to interfere with our stuff. Not because we carry guns and that, we don't. We don't firearms, nothing. But it's the letter of the law. Once you put it down, and remember, Romans 13 says God is the one that creates governments. He lets them happen. If you go against the government, you're going against his authority. So we use the scriptures a lot because I'm a believer, but it's written there for a reason. That's why it's in their courtroom. So pick it up and say, but did you know this book you've been bringing here? It says all this stuff. We're just telling it back to them. Okay. Australia shall establish native title to give the law, native title laws, to give due recognition. Yep. This native title says this is your land. And I bind the Commonwealth of Australia, the State of Queensland, and the Yarrabah Aboriginal Child Council to it. Shop shut, argument done. Let's build a nation. Oh yeah, but you're not. Your mother's father's from here, and that dog over there, he's from over there. And there's no need for that. When you've got your government, you know who's who in the zoo. Form it and start to looking after the mob who've got the right spirit, let's say. So, Birigubba has the right to redress. This is what Australia signed. This is what Russia did. Well, Russia didn't sign this one, but America, everyone, most of the people in the United Nations signed it. Birigubba has the right to redress. Why? By means that can include restitution, or when it is not possible, just, fair and equitable compensation for the lands, territories and resources which they have traditionally owned or otherwise occupied or used, and which have been confiscated, stolen in other words, taken, occupied, used or damaged without their free, prior and informed consent. There's been no treaty. What do you mean we're going to get paid for everything that's been taken? Australia, you can't afford it. We'll bankrupt you. Like I said, how about we give you money? Like lolly, you know when you get lolly? You can give that lolly now. We old people, we can give that lolly to the young people. Australia, yeah, look, lolly. Go to the shop, keep the change. But don't break our trust, or we'll collapse it. Okay? That's what I'm saying. When you understand this, there is no money. When you understand no money, there is no fighting. Most of our mob fight over money. Because someone gambled this or did that or spent it on that or whatever it may have been. Oh, yeah. But when you come back, that's what I'm saying. You just direct and instruct your government or the Commonwealth of Australia, whoever it may be that's administrating your territory. Okay. Treaties, talks about treaties. And I'll tell you now, with an absolute guarantee and certainty, if you set up your government tomorrow, the Yindji Nation will not only recognise and acknowledge it, but we'd want a treaty with you. We want to give you that respect that we have with the Githuranap or Yukon Yukon, for example. Tribal law way and on paper, okay? We need to reinvigorate these covenants. They've been there for a long time, you know, but we still need to do it again and let the world know. Two sisters and mother and daughter. Mother and daughter is on the extreme end, of the other sister's in the middle of the elderly. That's what policing is. We've got 50 officers and a dog in the police. Majority of them women. Why? It's a good question. Because that's what I'm saying. There is this thing here as building and building. You know, Queensland Police, they've got racism, sexism, corruption, dunk, dunk, dunk. Chief Superintendent of Police. Who's impersonating a police officer? Are we impersonating them, or are they impersonating our police officers? See that Udingi vehicle? That's a Udingi number plate. Don't touch our stuff. Otherwise, we won't allow your law to be here for 12 months. You own the land, but are you acting like it? You can say it, but are you acting like it? This is our government ministers. All shapes and sizes, colours, but they're all Udingi. 100% Udingi, because that coat of arms makes it Udingi, because the elders and the tribal law created that government. Thank you. I'm excited because you guys got plenty of people here.
That's-
Uncle, can I ask you a question there? About that staunch law you stood up against the white man police. What was that military law again?
I don't know, because we just said we're Udingi. That's the simplicity of it, I guess.
Yeah, but you know that. Yeah, you know that military law, that real staunch law that put the borders up the white man police and kind of put them in their place.
Well, I think
That
Is that the JAG law?
that's the one.
Another day.
Can I get that sent to my email, please?
I
If
don't
you
have
don't mind.
Yeah, we'll need your email address, Eric.
Yeah,
It'll be
if you-
included in our paperwork that we are actually
yeah,
doing
no,
as
that's
well.
all right. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I don't mind. Yeah, by all means. But yeah,
Okay.
it's all my last name, number 34@gmail.com, lowercase.
34.
At
Sorry,
gmail.com.
my pen just ran out, sorry. 34@gmail. Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you, much appreciated.
You're welcome.
I'll just quickly show you this. When they threw me out of the court system, they couldn't charge me. And everyone said, "Oh, Murimu, you beat the system, whatever." And I said, No. I never beat the system. This fellow already beat the system a long time ago. This is the king of Cairns. Remember the old fella, the photo of him with the shield and the sword I showed you in there were two old men, but this was on the one on the right. He killed a man under tribal law, and the Crown Court couldn't hold him to it because they can't interfere with your tribal law. Because under tribal law, we can kill them if we want to, if there was a reason to do it. All right? But we said, no, you follow the kids. We're going to give you writing first. So this is the one now where we said, look, we know that they can't touch us, but they can touch the Indigenous Australian. They can do whatever they want with that person. So that's what I'm saying. When you go down this track, you're very, very careful. They need to be careful. That's why we help identify who we are by identities, licenses, number plates, the whole lot. And we make sure there's no miscommunication. Okay.
Oh,
All right,
that's sorry, Murimu, that's wonderful. I think that was a really great presentation there. Do we have any questions? Errol, have you got a question here for Murimu?
Yeah, Dr. Adley here probably wants to ask a couple of questions there if you don't mind.
Can't hear you. No, you're on mute now. Try unmuting again. Okay.
Can you hear us?
No, you're very faint.
Okay, I'll get close to the. Can you hear us?
Can now.
Okay, I will introduce myself first to Uncle Murmur. I'm Clarence from Wagamay Naji, and I'm Mogan, so I'm the son of Wagamay country. There's a question I would like to ask about the authority. So when we have police, can you hear me, Uncle?
Yes.
When we have police, they own bombers. So we have police in Yidijin country, and we have all the other countrymen from all over the place to come to Yidijin country. So when they have broken the law, do Yidijin police go by the customary of men and woman business? So if woman has broken the law, if they come from Cooktown, to Yidijin, talk to the Cooktown clan group to sort out their difference, take them back home, or do Yidijin talk in tribal council to sort out the woman business or sort out the men business? Because what I see within the sovereignty rights, we need to exercise, practice in the customary traditions, beliefs, so that we are loved and respect to understand what natural law is all about, so that they will never ever do it again, because we are caught up in a system where we have forgotten our belong and forgotten our identity, forgotten our songlines and stories, because our songlines and stories are put in place to abide by it, by the rainbow serpent that created the law for us to love and respect the law for nighttime, daytime. So I'm just looking at this sovereignty thing because my believer is that I was taught as a young fellow, I'm at age of 45, and it's been passed down that we love and respect our law. And that's what makes us who we are, and we believe in the structure of family. But once that law's set in place, we need to get all our bummers together on Yidijin country, talk to them, grab our healers, like clever man, clever woman, and talk in men business, woman business, practice it and bring it back so that they go back home to understand their law. Because we've been in the system where that we have been deleted and we are mimic their environment. We need to start to mimic our environment to understand the mother and the father of crossing over each environment to understand how we balance our environment as healers of our totems that we've been given the name from our mothers and fathers to understand to maintain country of that environment so that the behaviors in the elements that we are balancing the elements, because I'm learning behaviors of the elements is what the storm does. We learn to ride it. And what the wave does, it crashes in, but we just have to sit and wait while it passes. Then the rain comes, and then it purifies us. So that makes us feel, to understand how we be calm to make the right decision as leaders, as healers, as clever men, as clever women, to bring family together. So with this Bama police, we just got to have a look at all the bombers that's been set up in township. And we just got to bring clan groups, unify them, and we can talk like proper healers and proper teachers and proper clever people so that we pass this cleverness and magical powers to understand what family is all about, to understand what love and respect is all about, because the system has created the negativity to break that loving cycle. And having this sovereignty is the best thing that will happen to unify us, to become strong healers, to utilize them gifts for us to mend our people.
Yes, thank you.
Keep on, Uncle.
I think you said, you spoke the truth there about helping one another, and that's what our police are there to do. So, for example, our police do bread and soup stuff for the homeless and destitute, let's say, but they also talk to people, and sometimes it's just listening to someone tell their story, you know. And our mob are like that. Like, that's what we call them, the Royal Police, because even though that fellow might be a drunkard, really he's a prince or somewhere from his land. But there might be some reason why he can't go back. Maybe he did break the law, or she broke the law, and that's why they don't want to go back. But in saying that, our police identify through this thing here, look, and that uniform. They coming to us for help. Small businesses are coming to us for help. Shopping centre coming to you. Didn't you please say we've got these young people, and we're only doing volunteer at the moment. So we know where we have something very, very powerful. And the young people, once we start bringing them in more, it'll start that process of, you know, looking after them and healing and all those things. That's why our central bank is really important, because that'll help pay for things. And while we can do it off the goodwill of the men and women that come here, you know, they have their families and bills to take care of as well. But we are starting there. So every few days I've got a roster over there with the police. They'll go to the key areas where people from out of town go hang out. And they're going toilet there at people's, or they're jumping in the pool, someone's pool or whatever. We're going making sure that they know that they can't do that anymore. And they're absolutely following that. They'll move on. And we'll say, look, go this place or that place. And they do. So it's working. But like you said, it needs to be even there are successful models inside of Australia for health delivery and that. But, you know, a new government comes along, they change the money, they cut the funding or whatever it may be. Our government will be able to sustain that and do it with a cultural application, you know, of what works for us on our territory. So, yeah, our police are, even the white ones get cultural awareness training, but it doesn't really matter. It's all about that spirit. And so that's what we're teaching with our police as well. Hey, it's not about the letter of the law, you fellas, you know, they know that. It's about talking to people, not looking down at them or disrespecting them, but also being upfront and saying, hey, you can't do that. Our Home Affairs Minister, someone from out of town had a broken glass bottle that was threatening one woman. Too bummer. And she said, hey, you can't do that, this is your Yidinji country. As soon as he heard that, he put it down. And then he went, and then the police came, and he just walked into the Australian police. I don't know who called the Australian police, but they just went. So there might have been a bit of background to that story, but what I'm saying is that people now, they know that the Yidinji law is back. They're seeing the uniform, and it's having an effect on the community, whether it's our mob, the business community, government or foreign governments, Queensland, Australia. And that's for us to do. No one can do that for us. You know, the cultural liaison unit of the Cairns Police, for example, they've only got 7 black officers. And we got, I wouldn't say black officers, but we've got 50 Yidinji officers and a dog, a police dog. So overnight, we've just, in 1 year, we've taken, we've times by 5 their number of available people that do that job. Otherwise, it's locking them up and sending them to Lotus Glen. For what? For whatever reason. But that's not our way. So I hope that answers your question, but I don't want to go too long on it.
Sorry, just have to unmute again. I was getting something.
Sorry. Yes, Uncle, that answers my question. I've got one more. We talk about money side of it. If we go through this, we'll take away the straw man. Just make the straw man feel the poverty of what we've been going through. So we take away the Queensland, we take away the Australian, we take away the American. So if we end up coming together to unify as one mob, well, that strengthens our songlines, our storylines, and to consolidate a simple law. Because that law never changed. It has never changed. And white man's law, policy, procedures, and guidelines, and so forth on, it keeps changing every minute, every hour, every day, every year. I'm tired of it. I
Can we
just
give
want to live a simple, ordinary life where I'm happy instead of stressing out, depressed, anxiety kicks in, and that's what killing our people because of the stress.
Can I jump in there? When Muramu explained that he uses the good book because they bought their law in a book. Inside there is also metaphors and parables. Now, what a lot of people not aware is how they created this stuff and who we really are, even in their law. The crown is the living, breathing man, and woman is the crown. Any mother who's listening, any mom who is here will understand when she gave birth, the doctor or the midwife said, you're crowning 3 times, because the spirit, if the body is the temple to God, then the king or queen is the spirit inside the body, which is the temple. That is their law. Now, they couldn't capture that. So they created the legal person, or otherwise known as the straw man, which is a corporation, because it's a corporation here pretending to be government, and it can only deal with corporations. So they created a corporate entity, locked us in their sign. Here's the sucker punch. Once you've got your government in place, you've also got your registries. Once you've got your registry, you register the birth certificate number, which is on the top right-hand corner, into your registry, because two trusts cannot take ownership over the same thing. It is an act of war, and United Nations will come in and protect you and your property, which is the name. That's what we're doing.
Thank you,
Now,
Dagger.
second part, for the question you asked before. I'm a lawman. I'm Warlpiri. I don't know. I got Warlpiri. I've been adopted by Githabo Narako, and I'm Biripi or from Tari Perfleet. So I carry law from Central Desert. I'm a red band. I'm this fella here as well. Now, once we've got our citizenship systems that are put together, we then treaty with Udinji. Now, if there's someone in Udinji here in Githabo country and breaks the law, here, it is between Udinji and Githabo mob to sit down and work it out, because here's the thing. The last thing we need is if one of Githabo Narako was up there in Udinji country and was speeding, they don't have to send them all the way down here to deal with the speeding situation. So the mob here and Udinji mob will sit down and say, well, then you'll say, well, for speeding, we're gonna make them fix the road for 2 weeks and fix the potholes. They're not gonna go to jail, but they're gonna help Udinji because they were speeding on Udinji's road. That particular road needs a little bit of upkeep, so they can help there. That's gonna be the retribution. We don't charge them in their system. We don't chuck them in jail. We make them accountable, because the reason why these laws are in place is so we cause no harm, no loss, no damage, and don't impede in the freedom will of another. That's what this whole process is about. Because we're now, Uncle Dougie here, I'll just point him out, there you go. He is the king in Githabo Narako. I'm Foreign Affairs Minister. So as Foreign Affairs Minister, I'll be dealing with Muramu up there, who's the Foreign Affairs Minister there. We give him the right to create an embassy down here, or what they call it, not the other embassy, or consulate down here. And we create a consulate up there. Now, what those consulates that do, once those consulates start dealing with each other, that's to make sure that any law which has been participated down here in Githabo Narako to do retribution for somebody here who may be Yidinji, we do not break the laws and protocols of Yidinji, and same vice versa. That's what the consulates and embassies' jobs are, to make sure we continue good relations between each of our groups. That's what the whole consular system is, and the consular general system. Now, what this does is, in order to understand how we're doing this, we're using their law for us, because when this country was founded in Fernando de Cuesto, 250 years before the British came here, they're the ones who built the Queen Victoria in Sydney. That was built before the British came here. Circular Quay, the big sandstone buildings there, you can't see no chips in those locks. They're as clean as glass. They're flat as glass. That technology was created by the Moors. So the Moors were here and Spanish were here 250 years before the British even came here. They called this place Australis Spiritus Sanctus, the great southland of the Holy Spirit, where he or she has the power to name the name of the Great Spirit that dwells within the sacred waterhole before birth. They are to be recognized as the lost children of God, Garden of Eden. So they knew who we were. They were doing business with us. The only reason the British came here is because British had nothing. They had a lot of rain. They didn't even have grass. They stole that from India, and the potatoes they took from South America. And that's because they had nothing there. They had mud and they had a lot of rain. So they created warships when everyone else had trade ships. Spanish, the armadas in Spain and China, they got all their goods and services, and they traded them along the Silk Road to get to Indonesia and other places. Then the English created what we call longitude and latitude, which is a system of time. So they knew when they could let their gunships leave England in order to circumvent the trade ships out at the sea before they got there, knock them out, steal all their maps and their goods and services. Then they followed those maps here. That's how they got here. Now, this is the secret of using what is around. If you don't have a canoe to get across the side, you borrow someone else's. When they came here, they started trading in rum because they had no money. And so everyone was given rations of rum as a trade to be able to build the system that we're in right now. Now, the same thing all over. When before they started colonizing and changing everything, the currency was backed by gold. In the 60s, they took away the gold reserve. The reason they took the gold reserve is because you can't take real wealth over a war zone, and they were declaring war against the citizens illegal because there's no declaration of war. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Paper. They came with paper. They gave us a fistful of paper, which they made from chopping our bloody trees down, and then they took our land, our people, and so on. The secret to this, the sucker punch. Give them back what they gave us, paper. We borrow their paper to give them their own paper back, and you get everything back again. You get the lands, the rivers, and everything else, buildings, whatever you like, and all you're giving them is the same paper they gave us in the first place. The reason we do that is because that's known as the Article of War. Give them back what it give Rome what belongs to Rome. All they got came with paper, we give them back paper. As soon as we create our own currency, which is back what they call asset-backed currency, that means the assets are the land, the minerals, the water, and so on, because that's what your birth certificate holds. And when they created the legal person, they created twins, because your placenta is recognized as the dead twin, you're the living twin. The all capitals name is actually the placenta. They put that in the ground and they claim the minerals under the ground by claiming the placenta, because the first law of land ownership, he or she who owns the land is he or she who can claim the ancestor beneath the ground. He or she who neglects their dead, neglects their newborn, therefore cannot be seen as a civilized human being, but as an animal, flora, and fauna. So they made every single time there is a birth, there is two. There's a dead and a living, because they got to go by their first testament. Yeah, you had Cain and Abel. Cain killed Abel and ate him. Cain ate Abel. Cain ate Abel. Cannibal. That's where that came from. Cain ate Abel. Cannibal. Yeah. So you got two twins. So every first person is born, there's twins. There's the placenta, recognize the dead twin. You're the living one. Once you're born, they prick your left foot and put your blood on a card called a Guthrie card. The Guthrie card is what you'd call the legal person, or otherwise known as the golem, or the voodoo doll, where they attach the dead name from the placenta to your flesh through the drop of blood. On your, then your name in capitals, because you look at all tombstone, the name of the deceased are in capitals. Look at anything out, living man, you capital at the front, small letters behind. So anything in capitals is dead. Capitis dominiosa maxima, maximum loss of status through the use of capitalizations. It's a corporation, corporation with a dead entity, a corporation, because there's no spirit in a piece of paper, no spirit in the building. When we leave the building, Elvis has left the building and the spirit is gone. So they said, all right, we got these paper ships called A4. And in this paper ship, we're going to put cargo on it. And so they put your name in capitals as the cargo. And now they say, oh, you're the crown, remember? Now, what is the crown? There's two crowns. There's a single crown, every living, breathing soul. Well, you look at the dictionary. You're a living, breathing soul traveling through the sea of space in the physical vessel that you have embodied. So you're not the body. You're the consciousness which is embodied the flesh. That's by their law dictionary. So now they put the all capitals, the last name in capitals on there. So the last name became cargo on a paper ship, which is your birth certificate. Then they started trading it through the Holy Sea of Space. They created in 1666. Now, under maritime law, if you're lost on a boat and you fall off the ship, you're recognized as dead intestate. You got 7 years to come back and say, I'm alive, I didn't die. On your 7th birthday, say, oh, anyone returned? No, he never returned. Is there a will and testament of the deceased? No 7-year-old has a will and testament. So the government becomes the trustee over the trust, which is the birth certificate account, and the cargo, which is the name. That's why they need to get ID and want to get your name. Soon as you create your royal house, Uncle Dougie is the Royal House of Williams. Your royal house creates a royal registry known as a manor roll. This is the Lord and Lady of the Manor, because they've only got all your paperwork, your name and everything about you is in their registry. Soon as you got your royal house, you set up your government, all your people start registering in register. It's called a record of registry instead of a registry, because if just a record of the paperwork or the name that they created, you take that, put that in the trust of the tribe, and then you give them a notice 7 days to take it out of their trust, or it's an act of war. And you get UN to come in and protect you to get your property back, which is the name which is attached to the accounts. Now, what they do is called USAFRAC. It is US military administration here right now since 1973. So when Murumu is saying he is protecting the Commonwealth is the wealth of the common man and woman. What our ancestors created, they passed down to us as the next of kin. It is our property because our ancestry made our last paraded. So that's black, white, brindle, and green. What we're dealing with now is not the Commonwealth of Australia. It's a company. It's a US military company pretending. If you look at the Commonwealth of Australia, capital letters front, small letters behind, still got royal assent. You look at Commonwealth of Australia, all capitals, it's a company registered in Washington, D.C., District of Columbia. So the Commonwealth is not actually here. There's a military pretending to be the Commonwealth. So when Murumu is saying he's protecting the Commonwealth, he's actually protecting it from these belligerent occupiers here who are pretending to be government at the moment. Now, as soon as they say, oh, we want to deal with the Commonwealth would like to deal with the Yidinji or get the Bonaraku, we can simply ask them to please show us you are a part of the original Commonwealth of Australia. If not, your US military administrating. They're taking all of our minerals, all of our water and our money. That's under USAFRAC. That means the law of the booty. If you're in a war zone and you've won the war and you're in control, you have the right under international law, military law, to use the wealth of that land to fund your war. That is what is going on here right now. Now, the trick of it is Australia is actually Norfolk Island. When you register as Australian citizen, you're saying you're from a Norfolk Island. All capitals name is a military name. So you're military from Norfolk Island in Australia, in this continent here, Australasia, apparently. And that makes you the enemy of the state because you've got a military name, you're from there, but you're here. That's their little trick. But soon as you step back into your Yidinji, Githabo, and into your groups, you just knocked all of that stuff out. It is a null and void checkmate. Now, the sucker punch. we have engaged United Nations, and I've got to let you know, this just blew our minds. We only got this yesterday. We served the documents we got from Muramu, which is Syria, which is the government structure. But we've been doing this now for 3 years in this place here. So we put the law of belligerent occupation, JAGS text, which is in the law of belligerent occupation. You can Google law of belligerent occupation, US military text. Inside there is JAGS text. JAGS text shows the crown of the returned sovereign. Now, there is 2 crowns. You got to remember, if the body is the temple to God, then every living, breathing soul inside the body is the crown. You're the landlords. You're the double crown. What is the crown? You are the landlord. You own the land. How do you own it? He or she who neglects their dead, neglects their newborn, therefore cannot be seen as a civilized human being, but as animal, flora, and fauna. Why? Why is that? Well, that's quite simple. When you're buried, the God picked up the soil and created the body, and then took and your I believe your stories up there. Get what is it? Udinji and Kukialanji, Kukimiji. Called the winds from the north, the south, the east, the west wind, and blew the air in and created the life, the living man. Yeah, and then from breathing the living man. So therefore, you, the conscious, came from the stars, and you have what is called lodial title, from call the earth to the stars. How do you claim that? That's ecclesiastical law. If you, the conscious, came down from the stars of heaven, flew down into the sacred water hole, which is your mom's womb, and God picked up the land and created the body. Now, every time your ancestors were buried, all of their DNA went all the way down into the ground, to the core of the earth. That's what gives you the claim to the land, is your DNA, something they don't have. That's why they keep wanting to burn our bodies now and not bury them, because if you don't have the DNA, you can't claim. Yeah, they keep saying, sending our ancestors overseas. We started bringing them back and giving them a name, because if you don't bury them with a name, it's recognized as flora and fauna, and you can't claim for flora and fauna. And they get, every time we get our ancestors back, we'd come back with only a few bones, bottom part of the jaw, a femur, an arm, a leg. Because they're selling all our body parts, because they're the biggest seller for all the private, private museums and stuff, is our features. So we decided to start bring everything back again so we could claim, and we did. Now, while we're doing this, as soon as you start burying your ancestors again, because you can claim every single, you know where your burial sites are, you know where your birthing sites, so that's birth, marriage, and death. This system says birth, death, marriage, because you're born, then you're recognized as dead on your 7th birthday, and then you get married as a dead person. That's their system. Our system, you're born, then you get married, then you die. Completely different system. Yeah. So we use military law, and we invoke the UN Secretary General contacted the guys that we were dealing with. They had 9 areas of the UN dealing with our paperwork, 13 sets of documents we sent in, and their exact words. We have never, ever, ever dealt with such documents in the UN. They had 9 sectors of the UN having to deal with it, because we had Nuremberg principles, and we showed how this corporation, pretend to be government, broke Nuremberg, death by firing squad and hanging. Also Hague, where they started the rights of indigenous people. That's an indigenous man who doesn't know who they are, who's being mucked around, who wants rights. No, keep the rights of indigenous people. We're not indigenous. Indigenous, not of race. Means you're not even human if you're not of race. So we say, you keep that one. We're standing as the crown, living crown, living, breathing soul. This is Crown Wadam, and he's the king of Githabo Narako. I'm the representative of Githabo Narako as the foreign minister to deal with you, the UN. Their exact words. All of the stuff since UN has been dealt with, from Africa, Native American, they have never had paperwork like our paperwork. And now the UN Security Council and the Secretary General is now contacting us between Monday and Tuesday or Wednesday, sending us a document where from that time forward, they will be dealing with the corporate Commonwealth of Australia between us, because we've done the same thing as Muramu and many things. But we have police turning up here all of the time, trying to arrest us. We've got Crown Lands Department, whose registry has been knocked out in 2019, so they're not even registered. So we sent that to them as well. And they're going, how can they claim? They're not even registered. Well, we said, hey, they're not even following their own law. So we're not going to walk into the court owned by the thief. And they're not going to recognize our court. They don't want to. Because as soon as they saw this paperwork, they freaked out because they're already still doing all these illegal deals and Uncle Dougie's land. So we need to put a buffer between us, because we get the federal police turn up here with guns. They turn up with their guns unclipped, turn up with dogs and so on. So we just dealt with the UN. Now they're saying from this time forward, we instruct the UN Security Council, the Secretary General, and he's the media between us and that corporation called Commonwealth of Australia. We get the documents will be signed off so that to protect us in an international level, because now it is now a war zone between us and that corporation called Commonwealth of Australia. We got a declaration of peace and treaty, and under international, you got a treaty, they're not allowed to have war against you because it's an undeclared war, which is illegal. So we pointed all these things out. Now the Secretary General is dealing with us. Take our instruction to tell them whatever it is we're asking for. We're asking for everything, everything. We want the roads, we want the hospitals, we want the airport, we want the casino. Why? Can you please show me a contract, a treaty? No. Well, you just got stolen goods. So full stop. That's where we're at right now. Any questions?
Thank you, Lawman. That was deadly. I love that spirit. Thank you. We have one question. Another elder will ask a question. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Is this unmuted, people? Yep.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, good. I'm Glenn. I'm from Wakaman, from the Dira clan in up far north Queensland. Now, with the United Nations, the United Nations meaning nation meaning no men. And we think there's a bit of a problem here with the United Nations, because under the with the 5 leading nation states, Russia, China, America, Canada, and UK, it seems to look like they're keeping secrets. China and Russia know what's going on here with the Australians and with the First Nation people here. I don't like the word nation, because nation means no men, and in their world, that all their language is corrupted. That's why they had to take our language away and give us the English. But if you were to look at the United Nations symbol of the globe with the laurel wreath, you'll find that Australia sits up on the top of the United Nations, and it seems
Correct.
that America has a lot of pull on that. Now, through my own investigation, it looks like the United Nations wants Australia to be, because of the girth by sea, because of the Holy See, they want, it's my belief, the United Nations wants to make its territory here in Australia. So it can usurp the world from there, because it's got 51% nation states, which are just corporate states, but you've got 49% sovereign states. But within Australia, or Terra Australis, or Gondwana land here, we have over 360 sovereign nations that should be recognised by the United Nations. And then that would tip the scales of the 51% nation state as to the 49% sovereign state. So there we got the majority and their democracy taking over everything. So how can the United Nations, I'm asking you, be trusted with this? Even though we've spoken to the Secretary Generals, there's a very interesting thing with Unum Sanctum under the Doctrines of Discovery 1492 that we came across, and it's called Cus Vivans Law, LAWE. Now, if you look up LAWE, it means Cus Vivans Law means we who live law. But LAWE means away from Satan's claws. So you got laws, Satan's claw is law, but LAWE is away from Satan's claw. So we've taken the abbreviation straight from the Roman Catholic canon with also canon 2057 that says any executor or administrator that does not recognize someone revoking the Cestui Act of 1666 can be found guilty by canon law, because that's what's the law that's running the land, and that's, you know, the Catholics are behind the United Nations as well, because they're holding the trust position. So we're forcing them to, not forcing them, but asking them to, you've got to be honourable in holding that trust position, but don't think that you can come to Australia and make Australia, they want Australia to be the head of the United Nations because it sits on top of their thing.
Then I've got an answer for you.
Yes.
Okay. The original, before United Nations, we had the League of Nations. The League of Nations was the one who was dealing with all countries. Then when John F. Kennedy got into place, he dealt with President Sukarno from Indonesia. President Sukarno, he was the one dealing with what is called the Global Collateral Accounts, which came from King Solomon. King Solomon died in Indonesia, had 105 wives. His favorite wife was Indonesian. When he went to Indonesia, and he passed away. Now, what we know as the Silk Road went to Indonesia. Every single trading group on the planet took their gold, silver, diamonds, building products and foods to Indonesia. Indonesia stockpiled everything. And when he passed away, he put that under a globe orbit trust and said it was to be given back to all of his people, was everyone on the planet. When President Sukarno got in place, he wished to invoke that same jurisdiction under what is called for the Global Collateral Accounts, which were backed off all of the stockpiles of gold, silver, and diamonds from the time of King Solomon. All Indonesia's banking system was level 3 and level 4, which is really shit banking system. So he contacted John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy came together and they created Swiss Indo. Bank of Indonesia and Switzerland came together. They shut down the League of Nations and they created the Founding Fathers United Nations. And the reason they did that, because they couldn't stop the war, because they had no control over the funds, the money. So JFK came together with President Sukarno to deal with the global collateral accounts. And they created what we know as the Green Hilton Agreement. The Green Hilton Agreement is where every country signed in to take away the monotony away from the World Bank, giving all countries the right to create their own currency backed up by the global collateral accounts. Now, once he done that, the World Bank threatened him and said, you keep doing this, you get all countries to sign in, we're going to kill you. He said, if yourself, and they shot him. Once they killed him, they also made a coup, murdered 1.2 million people in Indonesia and blamed Sukarno, put him under house arrest to get what is called the M1. M1 are the microfilms that control all satellite systems, all banking systems. He refused to give. After them, once they shut down that, they then put in Suharto and to replace Sukarno. Then they created what we now know is the Corporate United Nations. That's a corporate United Nation, not the Founding Fathers. I'm ex-CTU 24 Counterterrorism Unit Special Operations Executive on behalf of the Founding Fathers United Nations. That's why I know what I know about laws and so on with the military. This corporate United Nation has a lot of good people stuck in a bad situation. Before, they needed no funding because they were funded through the global collateral accounts, infinite bank statements, 200 pages of zeros before you even get to the first number. And it's an infinity sign, infinite bank statements to deal with that. Once Sukarno was put in place, they shut down the Founding Fathers UN, created the Corporate UN. Now, the Corporate UN has been trying to deal with the tribes for a long time, but the governments had put in what they call Land Council. The Land Council, a bunch of people from all over the place who are speaking for and on behalf of the traditional owners without their jurisdiction or their authority. If you see whose name is in the UN, it's actually the people at the top of each land council are the ones registered in the United Nations as the land owners. We've already given that to the UN to inform them that, sorry, you guys were tricked and you're working for the enemy. Now the landlords are coming forward and said, hey, you're breaking your own law, you need to deal with us. That's what we're doing at the Security Council right now. And they said, in all of their time, they've never seen documentation like ours. simply because we're pointing out to them. They put rules in place so that we could hold seats. But the Australian government created the Land Council, put them up there and put the heads of the Land Council to speak for and on our behalf. Now they are aware that the people they're dealing with from the Land Council are not right. They're not rightfully so, and they are belligerently occupying the seats of the traditional owners. That's what's going on right now, and that's why they're wishing to deal with us, to clean the mess that they too are a part of. They are good people stuck in a bad situation. We deal with the Native American, African, all these other sovereign mobs, and none of them have seen paperwork like ours, because ours can be duplicated for any continent on the planet to do exactly the same thing. Now, here's the sucker punch. United Nations is owned. It is owned by the King of New Zealand, and the man there in 1849, when the Battle of North and South in America to what they call for independence, because every single year America had to pay fealty to Britain because they were all British colonists. And then when they decided we don't want to pay Britain anymore, we decided we want to become independent. The Queen and the King in the day, they wanted to fight to keep their rights to get 60% of the value of whatever was made. They lost the war. Then they needed to find a way to pay the debt because they loaned money from Spain and France, and they had no way to repay the debt. So they traveled all around the world looking for two things. First thing they're looking for is genealogy. Who are the genealogy on the planet where everyone comes from? That's us, tribe from here. They recognized that. Second thing they wanted was time jurisdiction. Time jurisdiction is the first light of the sun. Wherever the first light comes up, that's what begins the first day through the whole planet. When they came here, that's for trade. Now, when they came here, they found that the first light is in Fiji, but it's a small series of islands, so they couldn't do jack all. So they went to New Zealand. And when they went there, they dealt with one of the families who said, okay, I have kauri trees. These kauri trees took 50 men holding hand to go right the way around the perimeter of these trees. He sold 1 million kauri trees to pay the debt of the British Commonwealth to Spain and to France. In doing so, he became the 60% owner of the Vatican, 60% owner of the Crown Corporation, 60% owner of all these things that were created in the modern day system. United Nations is owned by him. Once they did that and they settled the debt, he still had 2,000 tons of gold left over. So then the Rothschilds came in and said, we would like to use your gold in reserve, because they were still using shells, same as Miramu and those mob. They're trading with shells, stones, greenstone, and so on. Money had no interest to them. So they said, okay, if you're not using this wealth, we would like to borrow it at 2 tons per go to create the new financial system over the planet, and also the new governance system. That was allowed under agreement. They would have to use that 200 or 2 tons of gold, create the new infrastructure. Then every year they're supposed to pay 60% of that wealth back to the original family. Now, this is where the infant of the state comes from, the legal person. When they came here, they said, okay, now we want to share your sovereignty. So the British bought into the sovereignty of the tribes of Australia and New Zealand, and through the 4 corners of the flag, they captured the 4 corners of the world by dealing with what they call the Crown Corporation. What is the Crown Corporation? It is the annexation of New Zealand and Australia together to create the Sunset Clause. Sunset Clause is the banking clause. You can only do banking when the sun is up. When the sun goes down, you can't do banking no more. So they start trading in the Southern Hemisphere when the sun hits New Zealand, which is 3 hours before we get the light, but they don't stop trading until it goes down in Western Australia. So they got 6 hours of extra trading time. Now, in doing that, they created what they call the Port Nicholson Deed of Purchase. That was buying into the sovereignty of the tribes here in New Zealand, then putting our sovereignty and their sovereignty under a trust to administer as an infant, because we were infantile to their system of laws, infantile to their system of governments, infantile to their system of banking. Well, guess what? Now we're not. We are now dealing with the same King of New Zealand who has been dispossessed of his wealth. he owns 60% of the World Bank, the IMF, the Treasury, United Nations, and so on. We're using the exact same paper we got from Muramu and the Crown Returns sovereign documents to give him his jurisdiction back so he can take possession of 60% of the World Bank, IMF, the Treasury. Now, nobody paid their 60% since 1835, which means he has the right to recourse. He knows that he gave them gold. He's not interested in getting paper money back, and they don't have gold-backed currency. So he's taken another 20% of the Crown Corporation, which the Vatican, United Nations, all corporate governments are a part of, take another 20%, so he becomes an 80% owner. And he's given that 20% to us, the tribes of the planet. So now us, the tribes of the planet, will sit as 20% owners. The Rothschilds, that system out there will have 20%, we have 20%, and he'll still keep the 60%. Now we're standing right beside the king as kings and queens, sitting with the funding body that deals with all of them. That's what we're dealing with the United Nations on Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah, well, I came across some documents, and I was talking to an old fella. He was an old Migaloo fella, and he showed me some documents from back in Mexico in 1956. Now, when Papua New Guinea, which was still a state of Australia, or New Guinea as we know it, was still a state of Australia, John F. Kennedy was the one who cut New Guinea in half and gave Papua New Guinea to Suharto. Now, they planned the bombing of Darwin to create the Brisbane Line. Now, with that Brisbane Line, Australia said if we were to be invaded by the Japanese, we would give them from the Brisbane Line, which I think is latitude 20 or something down near Rockhampton. Yeah, just down before Rockhampton. Now, what the agreement was signed by Australia and Mexico, and this is where I think we've got a problem with the mercenary, with 178 million Indonesians, and under the four corners of the earth, and in the Australasia, in 1956, the Brisbane Line was signed over to be given to Indonesia in 2050. 2050, that's what New Guinea, and that's when America made up its three states of affair, when it cut South Australia in half and took the Northern Territory. It took the Northern Territory, it took the ACT, and it took Jervis Bay. You know the old knock three times business?
You are correct, 100%.
So what I think we've got is when you get these corporate nations and states, because of the wealth of Australia, because of the resources, they don't put the AU in front of it because we're the second largest gold producer in the world, but we've got more gold than anyone. They're just not telling anybody. So in gold, because gold is called AU in its chemical form, AU is also the first word in authority, right?
Yes.
So they want...
Who has the gold has the authority.
Because everyone was worried back in the 50s and 60s of Indonesia invading Australia, but Indonesia never had the mobility at the time to actually do it. But there was always a silent war. There still is one. But the reason why it's all kept quiet is because in 2050 is to be a peaceful transition from Australia to Indonesia because of the growing population in Indonesia under the Australasia Pacific. And that's why the three states is fair, and I think the American military will help them do that. So now we've got a problem with the mercenaries. And you've got these nation corporate states who want to run the world. One company, be it BlackRock, and working with Vanguard.
Vanguard, yep.
But now what the problem is that we don't have an army, that these nation states, which are corporations, are 51% of the vote in the United Nations under the Five Eyes, the five big nation states in the United Nations, which means that under their democracy, a majority rule of 51%. So,
I've got an answer for you too. Got an answer for you, man. When I was in Indonesia, I dealt with the M1 in Indonesia, Sugiarto no Todogoro. In my dealings with him, I showed him the corporate governments and all the bullshit going on. I was asked to finalize the job of John F. Kennedy to release all countries from the debt slavery. I've received the first $1 billion gold-backed bill from the Green Hilton Agreement with 1 billion John F. Kennedy bill backed up by 1 billion gold 1 ounce coins, which is worth $2,500 today. says 2,500, 1 billion is what the bill's worth. I was also given President Sukarno's pipe that he smoked under house arrest and King Solomon's ring as an agreement that when we need assistance, they will assist us, not invade us, they will assist us.
The only problem I got with Solomon is solo meaning sun, solar, and then you got monotheism. So what Solomon represented was a one world king, because sole monarchy, see, which is in line with the one world government. Because in the Bible too, there's a lot of allegory in it. You know, like when you read a story, much like our stories, if you look at it at face value and take it literally without going deep in the story, like Cannibal, Cain, Abel, and how Adam and Eve were under the tree, but the serpent had to come, see, because Adam, Eve, this is in their Adamic religion, because that's what it is. It was Eve was created by Adam's rib, but the serpent, following that path of least resistance, he had to come because Eve was to be Adam's helpmeet. They weren't supposed to have children because that's Adam procreating with himself and the genome. But you know, in our law, that's wrong business. So of course, the other side of creation, with the serpent being path of least resistance to follow. You scholars can't be doing that funny business. But it turned out the serpent was wrong, but he wasn't wrong in what he did, because you can't have these two people trying to procreate, because she came from Adam and they got the same genome strand. So there was monkey business under the tree, and that's why we got the twins, because you got Cain and Abel, right? And Cain slew Abel, right? So this is where the problem, and it's the Adamic, because remember, God made man in his image first before the creation of the heavens, and even through our custom and law, between the fluid, out of the nothing came the something, you know. So everyone talks about the Big Bang, and with our water law, woman, you know, the testate for 9 months in fluid, so everything's fluid. When we go back to the waterfall, which is fluid, which is the nothing, where something happens all the time, you know. So
can I simply say this, my brother? When King Solomon was in place, he wanted to be what they call the King of Kings. Before he passed away, he realized, and what he saw was that no nation, no group on the planet wanted to bow down to one person. And that's why when he died, he put all the funds into a global collateral account to give back to everyone to restore their own kingdoms. That's the original agreement after he passed away. That's what they put together in order to create the Green Hilton Agreement, to take away the monotony away from the World Bank, giving all countries right to create their own dollar, backed up by the global collateral account, to bring everyone back to where they were from the beginning. That's what happened. Now, where we're standing right now, we are all good people stuck in a bad situation, same as a lot of the people within the UN. There's good and bad in all of our families, all of our tribes, and even in the UN. But I'm also a prophecy runner. Our job is to make sure the words of our ancestors come true. I let them know that as well, and every other group I work with. Our job is to create 1,000 years of peace, and then let the meek sort of situation where the meek can inherit the earth. That's what we're doing right now. That's what the paperwork we're dealing with. That's what the governance system we're putting in place. The only thing we can deal with right now are the things what are in place, what do have that authority, that can be backed up by gold, by silver, by military, by law, and so on, which is why we are using the pieces of paper, the law, and so on. You can't change something until you're in it. You can't fix the engine of the car unless you lift the bonnet and you get into the car. Same thing here. By us doing what we are doing, we are putting our feet into those places so we can clean it from the inside out. The same as there. And the exact words from, what's his name? Carl Godfrey, second in charge of the UN. He said, the worst thing created on this planet was fucking governments, the dogs. And he called them dogs. And that's from the second in charge of the UN, recognizing things were created to fix things up, but it was hijacked and used to muck the people around. They want to fix it, but they don't know how. We seem to be coming to them with jurisdictions, with laws, with paperwork to show them how we can clean this together. Because no one person can clean it. It takes the people to set the people free. All should be able to set themselves free. But we got to start it from the top down, because you try and push shit uphill, you're going to get it all over yourself. It's better to stand up the top and then let the shit roll downhill. So that's what we're doing. We're using their laws to hold them and checkmate them. And we're using the 60% owner to be able to hold them accountable by the funding. What we've also now, the other situation you went in is, when it was created, it was funded by the collateral accounts. Soon it became corporate. It's the countries are the ones who actually fund it. Now that's where they can create what we now know is a right of veto. Russia, China, and 2 other countries, they're the main funding bodies of the United Nations, holding the UN by the nuts right now. So anytime they try and stop the United States, China, Russia from doing anything, they go, no, I have the right to veto, because these are the guys putting most of the funds in those accounts. And we're getting this straight from them as well. So we're creating a situation whereby they no longer need to get the funding from these governments, so then they can stop China, Russia, America, and so on. That's what's going in place right now. That is what we are dealing with. Same thing you're talking about, same thing we're talking about at the table.
Dagger, can I, sorry, Glenn, I just need to jump in for a minute. Moromu's going to have to go soon. So if we can maybe just move on and have a discussion about that a little bit later on, if that's okay. Yep.
And I'll just say that all this stuff that we talked about, we have plenty of time to talk about this after this meeting. Let's keep this meeting to what we're actually talking about, which is, let's get our paperwork in. Once you do you need any assistance, Muramu can assist, we can assist this lady, what we're dealing, Kim, also Lance, we all have the capacity to assist in whatever way we can. All you have to do is ask, sort out a time, we'll come together and assist in any other time. To finish this conversation we have now, I think we should do that on a different platform and another time. Blessings.
I agree. Thank you very much, Dagger. Okay, so Muramu, before you have to head off, can you quickly just go through what the structure looks like? So you've got your Council of Elders. Do you have an intermediary body? Then you have your government, and what that looks like, how that interacts, please. Okay, so as I showed you before, the Tribal Council were the ones that created the, as you saw in that little video, but you didn't hear it, put their names to create the paper version of the law, the codification of your customs and traditions. They created the Sovereign Unity Government to work for them. If the government was to overthrow the Tribal Council or try to do that, the Tribal Council could go, nah, we're collapsing it and we're starting a new one. So protect the law with something else there. That's why this government here behind me, it could be infiltrated, let's say, in future years. And they change it and they start to undermine and start locking up elders, and that's when the Tribal Council can cut it off and say, no. Okay. We're scrapping that. You're not working for us anymore. You've gone bad, gone rogue. That's what I would encourage, rather than putting it all in one hit. So then if the government makes a bad deal, let's say, and there was enough people to sell the land, you can stop that. Okay. So if they've done it in secret, whatever it is, it was done through an administration, it was bad paperwork. As the boss, you come in and change it. No, that was wrong. We didn't agree to that. But so that's what I would do. And with the government, women can talk for country there. Women can do this. Women can do that. Women can be the chief minister, the prime minister. So there's no tribal law there, because
there are some young people who are smarter than us coming through, for example. They need to be given some sort of responsibility to express the authority from the government from the tribal council. So the government allows that. And there is slavery. This is the slave right there. That uppercase, that's your slave. That works for you. You control this thing here. Or if you use the one in Australia, you don't know who's behind who. We've just heard that it goes back to the Vatican or somewhere, or Washington or wherever. When you create this thing, you control it in the very office that you made it. Okay? That's the simplicity of it all. Do your law. All the other stuff, it's good to know. But like brother said there, if people want to investigate those things, that's a good thing. Because you sort of got to know what the background is or what you're walking into. And who's your friend, who's not your friend, who's sitting on the sidelines. You've got to work out all that kind of stuff. From our point of view, Yidinji Nation, the Githable, Narakal, Yukum Yukum, Birugava, Orgame, all those, we want to be your friends, which is why we're talking today. We want to help you to build your world, and you decide what you want to do with your sovereignty. That's got nothing to do with us. So that's what I would encourage. Look at the documents, read the documents, try and understand them. And yeah, there's no rush, you know. There is a time. I wouldn't say there is. Don't take too much time, but don't rush it because you want money, for example, from your bank. Those things are going to come. You're going to get snakes. You're going to get scammers. You're going to get a lot of people coming to you. You know, so just be careful about that. And don't forget that when this is a successful thing, even the people that worked against you, you know, hopefully they'll be your best supporters because of how you treated them, you know. And that's why when we said, Yidinji government, no one gets paid. You do it because you want to do it. You do it for your people. And the banking stuff, yeah, that'll come, but don't let it get to our head, you know, because it'll be a lot of money. What is money? You tell me. They can just print it off and make it up. So they're the things that are, there is a potential for a lot of fights and stuff, but it's how you go about it, you know. And that way we know I'm getting paid for it. You'll know who really wants to do it and wants to do it, and those who go, oh yeah, good luck with that. See you later. I'll talk to you after. So you need to separate the wheat from the tares, as they say in the scriptures, the sheep from the goats, you know, the lion, the wolves and the sheep, you know. This is about a spiritual journey more than anything. And that's what it needs, that foundation, the rock. And, you know, that's what I explained, that Gaia Bara, which is the Yidinji name for God, is the Alpha, and Yeshua is the Omega, Jesus. Because that's Gaia Bara, that spirit in man. That's the template. Love your neighbor as thyself. That's the royal law. Pretty simple. Tell my son, if you do that, you fulfill all the laws. You won't break any of them. You break it, say sorry, love, pay the price for it, whatever it is, remedy the situation. That's tribal law. Now we're doing it through treaties amongst governments. That's the written law. The world starts to see our governments. They see Birugava's back. This mob's back. There's other mob back. So I'm very happy that you guys are looking at it, because it's about time. And yeah, so thank you so much for your time today and for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to talk about it. God bless you.
And that's wonderful. Thank you, Moromu. And thank you for all that you have done. And being a part of that process, going through it all, and then helping everyone else to come to the same conclusion with the correct paperwork that allows this process to go ahead. So thank you very much.
Well,
Can I just-
all I can say is it's the power of God that drives the government. It's like we've never been in university. Our mob never been past Big 10. But it's the spirit and it's the right spirit. There's two camps. There's the spirit of Christ, which means the anointed one, been chosen, or there's the anti ones, the ones that don't want to do. So that's what I'm saying. There's a reason why everyone's here today thinking about this thing. So it's serious business, and Yeshua is the door.
Thank you, brother.
And can I put a shout out that I'm sure you all seen Lance there. He is our minister of Yugums, which is a finance banking minister. That's Lance, yeah. And we say his skin might be white, but he's one of us. He's black as us inside, because you look at the way he behaves and the stuff he does. He's there for the underdog. He's there to help those who are in need. He's got a lot of people beside him, such as this lady Kim as well. There's got a lot of people out there that want to help. They know that we've been kicked in the guts and we need to be restored, and they're putting their hand up for it. And Lance is the man. The people, and this lady here, the people they got behind them, the hearts behind them, it's absolutely mind-blowing. Absolutely mind. We couldn't go on this far this quickly without him, his wife, Kim, and the group that he's got behind him. Without them, we wouldn't be here right now, not on our side. It would have taken us a lot longer to get this done. When Lance asked me to come up to Cairns to meet Murimu, we had no idea what we're doing up there. We went up there for a common law meeting, and we ended up meeting with Murimu and seeing all this other stuff. Went, oh my gosh, had no idea what we were in for. It took us a month and a half, I think it took us, to go through the documents, put them together, rewrite them, and put our stuff in place. And then 28 days after, we got over the line. But there were many sleepless nights between Lance and his wife and his team to get us there. So yeah, you got an amazing team beside you guys, Kim, her family there, and also Lance and everyone behind him. Don't be shy, and don't be afraid to ask for help, because that's what they put their hand up for, and they're really good at this stuff. Blessings.
Yeah, Chief Minister, we'll see you next time, brother, and we talk a bit more, eh? Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Errol, did you have something?
No, look, this has been a really eye-opening session that we knew about a lot of the stuff that he's been talking about, but I think Murimu and Jagamara explained it a lot more precisely which way we had to go. Look, we've done our stuff with the state government and all that. Affidavit sovereignty and all that. It's just the international side we didn't know which way to expand.
You're really fake.
Yeah, and I'm just saying that we're very, very thankful for the information that's been brought forward from Murimu and everybody else in Jagamara. Thank you. And hopefully we can talk soon about furthering this. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Just going to go back over to the ladies from Gaia. Did you guys want to say something?
Well, Kim, we appreciate you for helping us with looking at the sovereignty side of things, and, you know, just looking at the common law, natural law and tribal law, and combining that together for us people on Birregubba Nation. This is a beautiful blessing for us young ones to hear, as native title has destroyed our people of Birregubba Nation for a very long time, and I feel privileged to be sitting here with Mum today to come, and she's asked me to speak, so I have permission of my mum here. So I'm really looking forward to talking to all the young ones about this in their bloodline, and hopefully, you know, a council of elders of Birregubba Nation can come together and start representing and, you know, leading the way for us young ones, because this is beautiful for our ancestors, you know, a long time coming. Each individual Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
Oh, sorry, I think I cut you off. Oh, good. Does anyone else have any other questions before we close down? Oh, yeah, anytime. We'll chat after if you like. I think it's really important. I'm happy. I've put my phone number into the chat there, so anybody on here who wants to go ahead with it, give me a call. We have all of the ways to facilitate all of that with you. I'm actually in Mackay. I'm happy to travel up to you because I know most of you from up north there. Vicky, we'll chat after this and arrange another time. What's really important, the next important step for us in the Birri Nation or in each of our areas is to form that tribal council and to start getting that process underway. So for those in the Birri region, the paperwork is ready to go for you. It's just a matter of forming that tribal council or that elders council. And a couple of other processes within there. So as soon as we can get that underway, then we can start moving forward with that. Does anyone else have any other questions for Muramu while he's here?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the two uncles there for picking my spirit up and making me be a strong young Birri warrior within the bloody JAG laws and everything they actually gave me today. I'd just like to thank them for that. And yeah, keep pushing through. You dingy, you're a shining, mate. I got to tell you that. Much love, you dingy, from Birri Nation with Sundays.
That's really lovely. Thank you, Eric.
You're welcome.
David and Ramona, did you have any questions there?
Yeah, you got to say. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, no, it was very good. What I've heard. We'd like to know more because we're the people that lost both places when they took us out of our house and even on the reserve, where my other place. So it's very important what is going to become of it. And if we can get help, it would be very nice. And we are getting a lot of people are helping us, but yeah, listen to this. It's sort of, well, it is very good. So yeah, thank you everybody. And we hope to see everyone again in person. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Anybody else want to say, have any words, make any comments or have any questions?
Here. Oh, yeah. Sorry, Errol. I just want to say very, very positive, looking forward to moving forward rapidly, very, very quickly.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Together. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
If I may read something before I go, it'll be very quick. I'm gonna change it a little bit. It's from Deuteronomy, the book, the Holy Scriptures, when Israel came out of slavery. So I'm going to use Birri. Right. When you entered the land God gave you, and you took possession of it and settled in it, and you say that you want a king like all the other nations around you, be sure, he's talking to the Birri Nation, to appoint over you a king that God chooses. It can't be King Charles, it can't be King Muramu, it can't be King Philip, it can't be King anybody else. All right. Do not place a foreigner over you who is not a Birri. The king or the sovereign Moreover, must not acquire a great number of horses for himself, or make the people return to Egypt or slavery to get more of them. So don't go back into Australia to do your business and get more of it, because you're going to be going back in there. But the Lord told you, don't go back that way again. You must not take many wives or you'll be led astray. You must not accumulate large amounts of silver and gold. When you take the kingdom, the throne, the Birugava, you have to write for yourself on a scroll the copy of the law. Taken from that, from your elders, from the priests. It is to be with the king, and he is to read it all the days of his life, that he may learn to respect God and to follow carefully all the words of the law and the decrees. And the king cannot consider himself better than his fellow Birugava mob and turn from the law to the left or to the right. Then the king and his descendants will reign a long time over that kingdom or that nation. It's very, very clear, plain English, what you fellas got to do. Okay? If it's good enough for Israel, that's what I say, it's good enough for us. When I talk to Australians, what's your position on Israel? Are you an anti-Israelite? Oh, yeah, but you know, they do this. I said, hang on, but I'm talking about the sovereignty. Yeah, no, they're sovereign. Good. They are tribe. Then you can't go against us. Otherwise, you're an anti-Semite. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the law that they've been bringing there. All right, King Charles, you can't be my king. I'm sorry. I tell you what, you can be under one of us. I'll give you a visa. How about that? That's what we've been.
Adopt you.
Still be one of us, but here, here's your visa. We'll protect you. That's all I've got to say. God bless you. God
bless.
Waramuli, uncle. Waramuli.
Oh, yeah.
Alrighty, let's go across to the guy, ladies. Are you there? Did you want something? Did you have something?
I'm really, really looking forward for our future generation, but honestly, the Council of Elders of Birugava, once our next generation will see the elders of the Birugava, they have something to look forward to.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we can start healing the process to our future generation.
Yeah.
And get back to our spirituality, connection to back to our Mother Earth. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Vicky. Errol, did you have something?
Mr.
Just one question there. Are we going to get the recording from this meeting, or?
Yes. Yes, I'll send that out.
You need a email or something like that, or?
Yeah. Could you text that to me?
Yeah.
That's probably the easiest thing. So we'll just go through and tidy it up and then send it out.
Thank you.
Okay, no problems. Did you have anything else that you wanted to say, Jagger?
I just want to say it's an absolute honor and a pleasure and a blessing to be talking to you all. This is the time of prophecy. If you're dealing with us right now, you must be part of that prophecy. Time of saviors is over. You shall save themselves. Only you can set yourself free, and only you can set up your own governments, your tribal council, your governments, and all your ministers, and that's what sets you and your mobs free. You must be here for a reason, and I think I'm looking at another tribal council and another tribal government. That's all I'm saying. I can say thank you, guys. I can't wait to see you as tribal government. Can't wait to treaty with you.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Jagger. Peter, I got your message. Thank you. No problems. We will chat soon. We'll chat to everybody. As I said, my number is in the chat now. If you do need to take it down, it is there for you. Please get in contact, and we can work through this together. All right, Errol, did you have something?
I like Glenn needs to take up it.
Okay, yeah.
I'd like to thank everybody on behalf of our tribal council and our elders. And also I'd like to say we're looking forward to forming, because by the sounds of it, we've been alone within our tribal nation. We're looking very much forward, and I think we're all on the same track, forming the delegation within each tribe. And when we come together, then we've got we're in our power once we're all together, and we've got our delegates from each tribe. And when we get together and all this information flows, I can only see good come from it, which is in alignment with our prophecy, with the Uluru prophecy, and with the coming of a new age. When we move into the age of Pisces, which is the man with the pitcher of water, and we hold the water law. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to being with all family and coming together with our delegates, leaving all the arguments aside and looking toward that future for all of us. And I think it will be very powerful, and I think it's time, and I think it's running on prophecy anyway, so it's meant to happen. Thank you, everybody. Much love and respect and light.
Thanks. Thank you, Glenn. That's wonderful words there. So, okay, that's wonderful. We might wrap it up there if nobody has anything else. As I said, thank you all very, very much for coming. It's been lovely to see the faces and put the faces to the names.